All right, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Chandell Stone. I'm Vice President of Programs here at 3 Day Startup. I'm really excited to talk to you all about the future of female entrepreneurship as we see it at 3DS. As a female entrepreneur myself, I began my journey with 3DS late last year and have been working really actively alongside Erica and other members of the team to really reimagine what our sort of initiatives around female entrepreneurship can look like, and essentially just like charting a new path towards how 3DS can continue to support entrepreneurs all over the world, but namely underrepresented founders as it relates to women and folks of color. So essentially one of our goals or one of our objectives this year is to increase access to entrepreneurship education for underrepresented founders. And this is a women's summit, so we'll specifically talk about how that relates to women. But first, just kind of like grounding us with some statistics about what diversity and equity looks like in the entrepreneurship space, the startup space within the US and globally. As you can see, women of color are significantly underrepresented, but also just women in general. We are not sort of a part of the conversation in the same way as startups and entrepreneurs that are, as male entrepreneurs or startups that are led by men. And we know this to be true, or we believe that it has a lot to do with who is sort of at the helm of deciding who gets access to venture capital. With white men controlling 93% of VC dollars, it sort of, is in line with what we're seeing in terms of how those dollars are spent or how those dollars are invested. But when women VCs make decisions, they're twice as likely to invest in female founders. And so it's really important that, the work that we do is specifically supporting companies that are in projects that are in the idea stage, but also just by exposing, we believe that by exposing more female entrepreneurs or more women leaders to these entrepreneurship principles, we just sort of bring them into the ecosystem and allow them to insert themselves at various sort of places within the space, whether that is launching their own company or pursuing venture capital, or taking an entrepreneurial lens to their leadership roles within existing organizations. And so the S&P 500, which is a stock market index, this sort of shows, what it looks like, what like female leadership looked like in 2020. And the percentage of women in S&P 500 companies. So as you can see, women make up, almost half of the workforce, but are not being adequately represented in leadership. And so again, that's why it's also important. We believe that this, like the entrepreneurship focus, teaching entrepreneurship principles can allow women to insert themselves at various sort of like roles within the space. And more abysmal news is that it was more likely to have a CEO named John or David than to have a CEO who was a woman. So again, like this is why we're sort of prioritizing this and wanting to prioritize diversity as well. It's really important for a number of reasons. I'm sure those of you on the call are sort of like we're preaching to the choir, and sort of in terms of why we believe it's important for companies to not only have women at the table, but also have diversity and have opinions that are reflective of various lived experiences. And here are the reasons why. And when we look at this on more of a global scale, in sort of comparing how funding is raised for for ventures, you can see that, there's been a huge amount of growth over recent years in terms of the amount of funding that female founded projects have been able to close, but there's still a gap that we need to support women to fill. And so our goal is to expand programming across the Global South, increase diversity of our 3DS alum, and to ensure that our programming is more accessible. It's not just enough to be able to teach these entrepreneurship principles, but we want to make sure that it's that we're showing up in places where people are, and that the programming that we're putting in front of our participants is it's digestible, it's relatable, and it allows participants to sort of see themselves in the work or in the possibility of being an entrepreneur. And so we recently began launching these six-week incubator programs. And the topics that we cover in these programs are understanding customer and market opportunity, positioning your product, leading equitable teams, branding and marketing, sales, really formalizing your OKRs and KPIs, getting the opportunity to talk to industry professionals, VCs, folks in the space that can really network our participants into more into the entrepreneurial realm, if you will. And so what I want to do now is sort of take you all through kind of like what it's like to participate in one of our incubator programs or one of our accelerator programs, especially our new 6-week one, and sort of starting off with how we think about sort of formulating ideas delving more into the problem and formulating ideas in this process that we call ideation. And during this process, so some of you on this call may be founders yourself or interested in this space. And so I welcome you to take this opportunity to kind of play with this. And if you already, if this is not your space in particular, this is still a great opportunity to try your hand at being an entrepreneur or potentially launching a program or project. So where we kind of start in this conversation of when a founder comes to participates in our accelerator program, or even within our sort of traditional 3-day startup programming, we often talk about this thing called divergent versus convergent thinking. When founders are thinking through when founders are thinking through how they want to develop solutions, we first start by having them really think deeply about the problem, and then also really trying to get outside of the box in terms of idea generation, because we believe that leads to some of the best ideas. And we sort of encourage founders to not over rely on the solution that they may have come with in the beginning, but really sort of open themselves up to the possibilities of what could be and what are the different ways that we could approach solving a problem. And so that is more of the divergent thinking as opposed to convergent. And so here's an exercise that we do, and I encourage each of you to participate. So when you all look at when you all see this paper clip or see this image, I imagine that you all would consider this to be a paper clip, right? But this paper clip actually has many, many uses. And so we're going to take 60 seconds and we're going to, as a collective, try to generate as many uses as possible that you could think of for this paperclip besides what you would normally think of it to be as its traditional use. So go ahead and take to the chat and see how many we can come up with. I haven't seen stick figure before. That's good. Yes, it is a very good ornament hanger, actually. I do this when I lose ornament hangers every Christmas. I don't know what, if you're gonna get a yes if you give an engagement ring. Absolutely. Oh, cookie cutter. All right, 10 more seconds. We can definitely come up with some more. Okay, so this is an example of that divergent thinking, right? Getting outside the box to think about different ways that you could potentially, solve this problem or use, this particular device differently. Hold on, I have like so many boxes up. Okay, so yeah, so essentially it kind of goes back to this like problem-centered focus, like within our sessions, and that's just like sort of how we approach the work in general. We encourage founders to like pivot, to like change their ideas, to be responsive to what customers are saying, or what their target audience is saying, and really be problem-centric. So kind of taking this like divergent thinking and applying this to actually solving problems in the world. Successful companies often, before they like develop a solution, they focus on a domain, and you pick this domain or sort of area and create what's called a headaches list. So like things that are very bothersome that are within the space. And then that ends up translating into a problem or a problem statement, and then better allows us to develop a solution. So we're going to create a headaches list together. This headaches list or this domain is going to be around menstruation. What are some of the headaches? Because this is a huge industry. What are the headaches? What are some of the headaches that are associated with your menstrual cycle or other people's menstrual cycle if you don't have one? What are some problems in the space when you think about menstruation as a domain, as an example? Come on, I know we can think of a lot more. For example, not feeling like you even want to talk about, like even this conversation is like a bit taboo. I would say like the fact that it is so frequent. There's, like messing up your clothes or like sheets. For some people it might be irregular or unpredictable. Feeling ashamed. Smells. There's a ton of headaches in this space. And so we move from headaches to sort of forming a problem statement. And we start here in general when we run these sort of programs and when we work with entrepreneurs, because the reality is getting folks invested or thinking about your problem is how you really like gain traction or like gain interest in what you're working on. And so an example of this, where you have a founder who starts off with this like headaches list around menstruation, and then uses that to sort of fuel her problem statement and then develop a solution. And so we're going to watch this video together, and I want you guys to, or ladies or whomever's in the crowd, to sort of reflect on how they approach talking about their project or company, and how that might differ from how you sort of might traditionally think about the way that you should discuss like your project or product and when you're trying to pitch it, in terms of like, you know, discussion of the problem versus the solution.
You hungry?
Can you all hear sound? Is there sound just now? Okay, perfect.
You hungry with some yogurt? You hungry with some yogurt?
I'm Lauren Wong. I'm the founder and CEO of the Flex Company. I'm from Sugar Hill, Georgia, which is a small town outside. By menstruators, for menstruators, solving real problems. When I decided to start Flex, I was scared out of my mind. The only thing that got me to do it was people were just, please make something different, make something better. So this is the Flex Menstrual Disc. It is our first product. The thing that I really like about it, it's designed to be worn for up to 12 hours. So you can go all day without worrying about changing it. That's pretty amazing. If you think about it, we spend about a quarter of our lives menstruating. To spend a quarter of our lives uncomfortable, I think is super sad. I don't think periods are anything to be ashamed of or anything to fear or to dread. I do think, however, with a better product experience, our periods can be just as good as every other week, so that we don't have to dread 25% of our lives. One of the first things that I heard about the Flex Disc was that people loved that you could have sex on your period with no mess. As a bisexual woman, being able to have oral sex on my period for the first time was like, that's a game changer. The disc and the cup, people tell me that they're life-changing. No cramping, no odor, no leaking. People tell me that they can't even feel it. If it wasn't for our customers and the love letters that they send to us every day, I would not be in this business. That is the fuel that keeps me going.
All right, so what is something that you all noticed in regards to how this founder essentially like use the problem to invest us in her product. Let me ask this in a different way. So oftentimes when we think about pitching a product, founders sometimes fall in love with their solution. And so they spend a lot of time focusing on exactly just focusing on selling that product and convincing, oh no, you guys missed the backstory. Okay, maybe that's why. Okay, so I'll explain. Essentially, towards the beginning of the video, pretty much most of the video, she focused on the problem, the headaches, the things that folks were experiencing, and really used that as a way to invest people in her product, as opposed to, whatever this like flex disc is. Because at the end of the day, she could have, presented any sort of product at the end, but you as a reader, as a viewer, were already invested in whatever it is that she was working on, just because you were able to relate to the problem and she was able to make it really real and tangible that folks were experiencing it. And so we encourage founders to really live here, because when they live here with the problem, then if the solution pivots, then they already continue to have their customers or potential investors or supporters on board, because people are on board with fixing this issue, as opposed to an over-reliance on whatever this sort of product is. So you're going to put your founder's hat on and think of an area or a pain point in your life, and just create an exhaustive list of headaches related to that particular product or service. We're going to take 90 seconds to do that. All right, so you have your domain that you're working on, and then hopefully we're able to create a headaches list within that domain that you can then translate into a problem statement. So a problem statement basically includes a brief description and background of the problem, who's specifically experiencing it, and the impact of it. essentially like what would happen if no one fixes this or addresses this problem. So an example would be budget travelers often struggle to find a comfortable place to stay, especially in major cities. This will ultimately inhibit travelers' ability to explore the world. In those same major cities, residents find it challenging to keep up with rising housing costs, potentially causing housing insecurity for many. Anybody have an idea of what this could be, what company this could be a problem statement for? Nope, not Uber. It is Airbnb. So take another, like if you were able to create a headaches list and try to develop a problem statement using the headaches that you feel like are probably most prominent in that space. We're gonna take like 30 seconds here. All right. So if anyone has a problem statement that they want to share, feel free, either like an existing one that you are already working with or one that you just like developed on the fly. It's also a really fast time frame to develop a good problem statement. So it's okay if folks weren't able to do that. At least you get the idea of how we sort of move from headaches or divergent thinking, headaches, and then problem statements. So one of the accelerators that we, one of the, as a part of what I mentioned earlier in terms of what our goal is or what our focus is this year, especially in terms of developing new programs that make entrepreneurship education more accessible, as well as supporting people in the, sort of creating more diversity in the way that we approach the process. We launched this program called Women Lead CDMX, which was our first 6-week accelerator program that we launched in Mexico City with a group of diverse women who were primarily in the idea stage, as well as some of them had already had some customers, and they were really working to just scale and refine their ideas throughout the 6-week course. And so what I just took you all through is basically how they started the work, how they sort of entered and what our first session was focused on. And then we ended up culminating with a pitch event. And this is how it went. And I'm not going to mute myself this time so you can hear. event is about showcasing the work that our founders have been working on for the past 6 weeks. They've been really formalizing their ideas and really bringing their business visions to life. And today is about showcasing that to an audience of friends, potential investors, and other spectators.
This is the first time I've been in programs just for one prize party, so I'm excited about it to present this project, and also about the other entrepreneurs here. They're amazing women. I really love to be with them, and that's why I'm excited about it.
I'm really glad that we got to be a part of the inaugural cohort of Women Lead CDMX. It's been a really good experience so far, and yeah, I mean, the party is dope.
Yeah, I've got to meet great people. I feel like, so I'm really happy about that. And yeah, I feel like overall it went really well and pushed us to our limit at some point. So yeah, that sounds great.
I think women, we are our own limit, you know. We have the power to break all the paradigms and just be free. So feel free to be you. Feel free to be you and experiment everything you want. Everything you need, you are able to do it and to get it.
So we are joined today by one of our program alums, Angie Brooks, who is going to not only give you a glimpse of like what that pitch event was like by pitching her event, pitching her company, but we'll also have a few minutes at the end for some Q&A to just talk about her experience or her company, etc. So I'm welcoming Miss Angie Brooks to the stage. Angie, you're muted.
Okay, is that better? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I just want to thank you for inviting me on and for all of your work. And just so you know, I got 7 minutes up here, and I just set the timer. So here we go. Welcome everybody. I missed the beginning of Chandell's presentation, but I'm very excited for all of you to be experiencing this. I am actually trying to figure out now how to share share my screen. Okay, let me see here. I think it's this one. Just give me one moment. Okay. All right, let me see if this is coming through. Okay, here we go. All right, so my name is Angie Brooks, and I am I'm the founder of IGAMI, and I focus on inner child healing, and I also focus on helping people move into a better place in their life through plant medicine and through my example. And IGAMI is IGAMI is image felt backwards, and it represents moving away from the image that we project to the world and showing up as one's authentic self. Now, exactly what does that mean? And how do we show up authentically? Really what that is, it's a matter of shifting beliefs that we have been taught by our parents and beliefs that were never really ours to begin with. And as we become adults, we start to focus more on all of the things that we kind of dealt with when we were children. And so this is really where all of the healing comes from, and it's focused on loving ourselves first. And so because I'm from the United States, I want to share a little bit of statistics from the States. We're looking at PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We're looking at stresses and things like that. At least 70% of adults in America have had a traumatic experience, and 45 million are still struggling with PTSD. This was in 2020, so you can imagine from the beginning of the pandemic to now what people are moving through. And there is actually a PTSD term that is specific to the pandemic itself. So looking at these stats, over 10 million people in the US misuse prescription drugs, and at least 72% of them overdosed on opiates. So these numbers are really, really startling. And how does unhealed traumas show up? You're looking at anxiety, depression, chronic fatigue. You're looking at issues in your body. Your body is calling out and asking you to put more attention to these places where your DNA is actually holding all of the trauma. Suicide is a very big thing right now. I imagine that it's also happening all across the globe with the pandemic. Just to give you my personal take on this and why I do the work that I do, I actually had depression for the majority of my 20s. I was addicted to marijuana. I had digestive issues. And after I did a lot of work trying to figure out how Western medicine can help me, I was exhausted. And I ended up moving into traditional Chinese medicine. And acupuncture was my medicine of choice. After that, I started to really tune in with my body and feel the disharmony that was there. And this is what dis-ease shows up. This is why dis-ease shows up in the body, because it's time for us to really take our power back and to focus on all of the things that we need to, which is inner child healing. Many of us are living our adult lives with a lot of traumas that we carry from our childhood that we don't even realize are related to the type of relationships that we are attracting, toxic experiences. So after a few years of focusing on holistic medicine, I ended up traveling to the Amazon jungle, which is where I discovered ayahuasca. I'm a huge proponent of plant medicine, and without plant medicine, I would not be in my position today and be able to assist the hundreds of people I've been able to help with. And so these are some of the, just a few of the things that I've helped some people move through. COVID is one of them: anxiety, migraines, addiction, depression, chronic pain, emotional traumas. Again, most of these are stemming from childhood traumatic issues that have not been dealt with. So next week, I actually have an amazing journey coming up. I call it not a retreat, an inner journey immersion experience in Tulum. And I'm very excited about sharing some of these indigenous medicines, as well as natural healing techniques that my ancestors and maybe your ancestors have also used as well. What I am looking for in this process, because I'm new to Mexico City, is to connect with more people, to share my medicine through my example, as well as hosting small ceremonies for women and everyone else who's interested in diving deeper into their emotional traumas. And I want to end with this video of my work. Oh. Well, it doesn't look like that. Hang on one second. Let me do this. Chandell, if I need to drop off at any point, I've got about a minute left. Please let me know, and I'm happy to do so. But let me just get to this video really quickly. Here we go.
We can't see the video.
Oh, really?
No.
Ah, okay. I'm glad you said that. Hang on one second. Can you see my screen now?
No, it's sort of frozen on you loading the deck.
Oh, it says that it's paused. Hang on one second. Resume share.
Okay.
Okay, let me know if you can see it now.
No, we can't. And actually, we have like 1 minute left.
Okay.
We have to wrap, but so we won't have time for questions, unfortunately. But if you could drop your contact information in the chat, so folks who want to get in touch with you, either to like support the work that you're doing, or schedule a consultation, or any of that, that they can do that, that will be really helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I will do that. And thank you again for your time. And I wish all of you the best. It's such a beautiful experience. And Chandell does an amazing job of leading us in this. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you so much, Angie. All right, and so those of you who are still here can head back to the lobby, and you'll be able to get further instructions or move on to the next session. Thank you.